Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we're going to open the episode with a game. Now, we did a game the last episode, and
Yes.
Joy, I believe, has got some more odd one out or tell me the wrong thing game or something. So, Joy, over to you.
That I explained horribly and did backwards last time, but Tim figured it out. All right. So I was trying to think of things, and this one comes from Charles, my husband. He thinks it's funny, the Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavor names, because they're ridiculous. So I'm going to give Tim 2 Ben and Jerry well, 3 total. 2 will be correct, 1 will be fake, and Tim has to figure out which one is the fake Ben and Jerry's ice cream name. Are you familiar with Ben and Jerry's? I'm assuming so.
Yes, I am indeed. I like my favorite is Cherry Garcia.
See, there's an example of weird Ben and Jerry ice cream names. All right, so let me pick my favorites. All right, Glampfire Trail Mix.
Okay.
Everything but the ... or my Miami Slice.
Well, I'd like to think it's the trail mix one, though it's hard to say with those flavors. Miami Slice sounds great. Now, I'm a Miami Vice fan, so I would probably want to go out and buy Miami Slice, but I would have never seen it. And I would have probably purchased Miami Slice if I knew it was a thing. So I'm going with Miami Slice.
It is the fake one.
Yay!
So if somebody's made a fake little thing, it's actually a Dexter's reference, which Tim would have rathered it than Miami Vice. But it says key lime pie ice cream with a blood strawberry swirl and white and dark chocolate body parts. That's what the fake one says. Oh. All right. So here we go. Out of this swirled, Sherbet Holmes or Mint Wonderland?
Mint Wonderland, you say?
Mm-hmm.
What was the second one again?
Sherbet Holmes.
Sherbet Holmes.
And then Out of the Swirled.
Well, I would probably go Sherbet Holmes only because it's a sorbet flavor, not an ice cream flavor.
Darn it. I'm going to have to find a new game because Tim's really good at that. Maybe I need to find something he knows nothing about. Modern day TV shows.
I mean, I don't have a clue. I mean,
I'm picking. I didn't know how up on his Ben and Jerry's he was. All right. Let me give it one more. Maybe I can get him. All right. I will say whoever made the fake ones, they're pretty funny. Like they made like fake like pictures and everything. Carmelo Activity, Chubby Hubby, or Coffee Buzz Buzz Buzz?
I would probably say the Coffee Buzz Buzz Buzz.
That's a real one.
Oh.
It's the Carmelo Activity is the fake one. It's coffee. So the Coffee Buzz 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 with an exclamation point is coffee ice cream with espresso bean and chocolate fudge chunks. It is also gluten-free for our gluten-free friends.
There we are. What's in Chubby Hubby?
Let's go back. Hold on one second. Where are you, Chubby Hubby? There it is. It's a vanilla malt ice cream with peanut buttery fudge covered with pretzels with fudge and peanut buttery swirls.
So what you're basically saying is that if you have a husband and you want to chub up your husband, you buy Chubby Hubby.
That's pretty much what they're going for. It says 2 strictures convinced a coworker this flavor really didn't exist. Then felt guilty and made him actually pack up. But oh wow! So there was a person who they told somebody who worked at Ben and Jerry's that this flavor existed and it didn't, and he made it because they tricked him. There you go, Tim. I'm on to something with the Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavors.
Well, I did hear, though, like back in the day when Ben and Jerry's was more of like a regional brand before it got bought out by, big conglomerates and what have you, it was very common that they would do short runs for staff of like odd flavors. So maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah, I will say of the ones that are real, one that I thought was funny is there's one that's just called Au Pair. Like an au pair, but like a pear, like in France, you know, or like whatever. But it's like pear, like the flavor. I don't know. I don't think I want pear in my ice cream, but that made me laugh.
I don't know. Pear might be nice. Pear flavored ice cream. I don't know.
It's one of those things that have to try it to make the decision. because it could go either way. Kind of like peach could go either way. But anyway, everyone.
Well, that's like salted plain chocolate in ice cream.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't think that something that's salty would work in ice cream, but I've had that and that's really good.
So I am a big fan of like salted caramel type things or salted chocolate. I love that. I think it's delicious. Even dark chocolates are good like that. During the holiday season, because when I do get coffee, I tend to be a very plain coffee drinker. It's just like coffee and like an oat milk or something. But during the holiday season, there's a salted caramel thing they do at Starbucks, and it is 10 out of 10. I will say I am not an ice cream person, Tim. I'm not. It's very few. You will very rarely see me eating or being near ice cream. And when I do, it tends to be very basic. Like I like vanilla bean, mint chocolate chip, and that's pretty much the extent.
Yeah, I occasionally have ice cream. I mean, I like it, but not super into ice cream. I say I do like Cherry Garcia. What I really like is a 99. Do you know what a 99 is?
I do not.
So, have you never been to an ice cream van?
Oh, well, yeah. I've had, we call them trucks, but yes, they are more like vans.
Yeah, so you go to an ice cream van and then you get a cone and it has Mr. Whippy ice cream on it, which Hannah would call soft serve, but I call it Mr. Whippy ice cream. And then what they do is they put a Cadbury's flake in it. And that is a 99. And the reason it's a 99 is the Cadbury's Flake chocolate is 99 millimeters long.
Well, there you go, everyone. If you win Jeopardy one day, you can let Tim know that you got it because of him. He expects at least 2%.
But that is the best. But anyhow, so let's get into the vague music topic of this podcast that we talk about and that kind of stuff. So this week, it is my turn to pick the topic. Correct. So, as many people know who follow me on the Instagram and on the Twitters and all the MySpace and the Friends Reunited and all those kind of websites that may or may not still exist, I recently had a trip to Canada. And I had a fabulous trip to Canada. It was really just a long weekend, but we drove up there from Virginia and then we spent 4-5 days up there. And we had a fabulous time, stayed at Niagara Falls and went around St. Catharines and Niagara on the Lake and all that kind of area. So on the time I was up there, I exclusively listened to Canadian artists, as you should when you travel. Whenever you travel to an area or a country or somewhere that you haven't been before, engross yourself in the culture by listening to music that's exclusively recorded by people from that area. Normally, when I go to Pigeon Forge, I will listen to Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash, and that's about it, really. And so when you go to Canada, you have to listen to Canadian artists. So I decided, so I decided this week's episode with Canadian thoughts fresh in my mind. This episode will be called Oh Canada, and it's exclusively Canadian artists.
And I just want to say, if you have Tim on any of the social medias, he really does look like, thank you to one of our Freak Gym, like he is giving a broadcast, like a news broadcast in his photos by Niagara Falls. It looks like Tim's about to tell you what the weather's going to be.
Well, I can tell you that the day that picture was taken, the weather was rather chilly, and I wore my Radio Freak Jam hat.
He did. These things are true.
And also at the falls, opposite the American Falls on the Canadian side, there's a really nice tribute to my co-host of this podcast. And in like 20-foot high letters, it says joy.
Which obviously was put there for me.
I think so. They knew I was coming. They knew I was going to document it for you.
Of course. Well, I have spent some time in Canada and I did study French. So, there's that. That's probably why, Tim.
And so where did you go in Canada, Joy?
Well, I was in Quebec. So what it is I had two different. So I grew up, my dad's Cajun, so I heard a little bit of French growing up. And then I had a teacher who was Parisian French. So that's when I went to France. But then I had a teacher who is also, she did Quebecois, which is the French you hear spoken in Quebec. And they're very different. Like one thing that's different about them is I learned the Canadian way of singing Happy Birthday. And then I learned later that that's not the Parisian way. And so that threw me, just different little dialect things. And then there's the Cajun side. I don't know what any of them are saying. It's a whole different ball game down there. So there you go. That's where I was. I spent most of my time in Quebec, and it was during the winter carnival season. So you got to go all the winter stuff. And true story, Tim has known me for however many years now and knows how many times I injure myself. When I went to the winter carnival, there's like those alpine slides that you can go down, like one of the big things. And the entire steps that you had to go up were solid ice. I think I fell a total of 20 times in the 3 hours that we were there trying to get off this darn alpine slide. And by the time I was done with it, I never wanted to see it again. So painful because, I mean, it was just an ice slab. But every time I've traveled, for whatever reason, there's like, I don't know if it comes with me, it's always in a heat wave. Don't ask me why. Because so we prepared for Canada to be cold. Now, it was cold for the first few days, and that's why I was able to go up the ice slab. But the ice slab, you know, had been there for a while, so it didn't just, you know, thaw. Now, think like 45 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, that's pretty warm for winter Canada, especially when all you packed was fleece and your big clothes. So we're walking around trying to see all the monuments, and we look ridiculously stupid, like because it was me and the other students, because we're dressed for like the negative 20 degrees, and that's the only thing we packed. So we also got to meet our pen pals, and I remember because we had been writing back and forth with pen pals in French, and we all come in looking like the Bear Witch, or our pen pals show up in jeans and t-shirts staring at us like we're the weirdest people on the planet. And so when we were in France, the same thing happened, which, you know, we've talked about the no air conditioner thing. Spain's always hot, but I mean, it was extra hot, and at least they had air conditioning. Greece, I can't tell you because it was just hot in general, but I to this day, both times I was in Paris and both times and the time I was in Canada, and they both went through like the biggest heat wave they'd seen in 17 years or something.
Well, I can tell you, I took lots of warm clothes and jackets and stuff with me. And that first day that we were there, from that picture you was talking about, it was pretty chilly. And then every day after that, it was actually pretty warm. And there was one day we went to this new Niagara Parks power station. And it used to be a power station, and it's now a power station museum, which is it's actually really interesting. And there's this huge tunnel that goes all the way under Niagara Falls that comes out so you can see the falls. And it used to be like a tunnel water would go through, and they've now made it this big thing, and you can walk right up to the edge of the water. It's actually really cool. And they call it the tunnel. That day was the second day we were there, and I thought, well, I'm going to put on extra clothes, and it's going to be cold and all this kind of stuff. And you have to walk from our hotel to where this was, which was maybe a couple of miles. And I was so hot. It was ridiculous.
That's how we were. I was just like, and I remember they're all telling us, you know, jeans freeze, don't wear your jeans, because we did a lot of outdoor activities. I remember one time we went a little further up north to where they do like the maple syrup, where they tap the trees, you know, and they have little like restaurant you can go in, and it was called like the Sugar Shack or something. And they had live music, and you got to see them tap the thing and stuff like that. And so they were preparing us for things like that, you know, you're gonna be outside and it's cold, but no, it wasn't. Anyway, so there's my story, because it would have been around, it was in December, January kind of time frame, so you'd think it'd be really cold, but for whatever reason it wasn't.
Yeah, I've been to Canada many times, and I've been to Niagara Falls many times. First time we went was in February, and we crossed over into the Canadian side, and the water from the falls just creates this mist constantly, huge mist cloud that comes off it.
Chilly.
And because it was so cold in February, the mist sort of went onto all the trees around there and all like the railings at the side of the falls, and just cakes everything in ice, and it looks beautiful. But everything is just covered in ice. It was so cold.
So the part of Florida I'm from, where I was born at, is on the Gulf Coast. So it's the northern part of Florida. And during the winters, it does get cold there. And because you're right by the ocean, the breeze would come off, and it would be like stick to your bones cold, because that water was so cold. And there's pictures of me at like 4 years old standing outside in snow in Florida. So that happens. Or maybe I'm just bad with weather. I don't know. Maybe I got bad luck.
Who can say? It's either too hot, it's either too cold. It's just I don't know.
Anyway, so on to the music. This is a music podcast, not about ice cream and Canadian temperature.
Well, what I wanted to do before we get into the music, I was just going to give some quick Canada facts.
There we go.
And then we'll get into the music. So as we all know, Canada is part of North America. It sits above the United States. It is obviously its own separate country. People don't like it where you go into Canada and just assume it's just like the United States, because no, it's its separate whole, completely separate thing. It looks very similar to the United States, but one thing is, like, all the road signs and the road layouts reminds me of driving in France, which is not super outside the realms of what you'd think, because the official second language of Canada is indeed French.
Yeah.
And where I went to in Ontario, most people speak English. Most English is predominantly the language there, but you get in some parts of Canada, and most people are going to be speaking French rather than English.
Quebec, Toronto, those are the big areas that I went to where they spoke a lot of French.
Yeah, last time I was in Toronto, it was all English. I mean, I suppose it depends where you go and the people that you hang out with. But what else was I going to say? So the population of Canada is 38 million people, and they have a prime minister, and that's Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
So that's, I just wanted to just cover those very quick things. So I pulled together a list of songs from Canadian artists, and I've tried to pick out some ones that you would know. Maybe there's a couple in here of artists that you may not be familiar with, but we will see how this goes. So I'm going to open up with who else? The groover from Vancouver, Bryan Adams, from 1991. And this is the song, Can't Stop This Thing We Started.
I mean, great song. Good way to start it. I see what you did there. Anybody? I mean, Bryan Adams is like what? He's one of the defining voices. Like, I think he had such a defining voice of the early 90s. I mean, I can't think of a more dynamic, like, you know him as soon as you hear him type singer.
Absolutely. And he had, in the sort of the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, he had hit after hit after hit. He was just like one of those artists that you really couldn't escape. Now, Can't Stop This Thing We Started, I believe, was the next single after Everything I Do It For You. I think this is the very next thing that he came out with.
Well, you know, and also he's not a Superman and he can't fly.
That's correct.
Anybody's heard that song, but I'll be here all week.
The interesting thing about this video is it has like a mechanical bull bucking bronco type thing in it, but it's not a bull. It's a Fender Stratocaster guitar. And apparently it's the largest, well, it's not really a guitar, but it's the largest like effigy of a Fender Stratocaster guitar ever made.
Huh. So I don't think I've ever actually seen the video. Is somebody on it like a mechanical bull?
Yeah, it's the groover from Vancouver himself.
Oh, well, I should have predicted that. What was I thinking? None of this is weird. I should have known. God, what was I thinking? I mean, I will say I'm glad you chose this song instead of some of the ones that I could go without hearing ever again. Yeah,
I looked through the list of Bryan Adams music that I had, and I was like, yeah, no. I thought let's pull out this one.
I mean, Bryan Adams is one of those guys that, like, I feel like every wedding in the 90s, every school dance in the night, you know what I mean? He's that guy.
Exactly. But as I said, it was impossible to escape him at that time. I think he's still out there making music, but I don't think it is quite as iconic now as it was back then.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I feel like for me, he's I don't want to say like the king, but he dominates that early 90s vibe.
Sure.
Along, you know, kind of like a little bit, it gives me like Don Henley, Huey Lewis kind of vibes a little bit, but like in the early 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, anyhow, let's move on to the next artist. Now, this one is a little more unusual. Again, this gentleman is a Canadian, and it's from 2015. Now, this song is a cover, but it's an amazing cover. This is Chris Hadfield.
Okay, I do know who Chris Hadfield is.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know who Chris Hadfield is, he is a Canadian astronaut. He has gone to the International Space Station on a Soyuz. He's gone onto the International Space Station on a space shuttle many times, so I understand. And he sort of got fame from when he was on the International Space Station the very last time. He did lots of YouTube videos and social media posts showing people what it's like to be in microgravity and what water does and how you can spin upside down and lots of interesting things that people liked at the time. It was an interesting time when he was on the space station. But one of the things he did when he was on the space station is record a cover of Space Oddity.
Yeah, on his little space sessions thing.
which is a David Bowie song, obviously. Now, he released an album of original music called Space Sessions, Songs from a Tin Can. And the bonus track on there is that version of Space Oddity.
And it's really cool. Now, I have a question. Do you think it'd be harder to play a guitar in zero gravity? Or do you think it'd have any effect on your ability to play?
I don't know. I wondered whether the strings would resonate the same way. And they do apparently resonate exactly the same way. But I suppose it just like holding it would be weird. Because
I don't know, because you would naturally. So, I mean, I don't play the guitar, but I play the ukulele, which is another instrument you have to hold, right? And I can't, I don't know why, but in my mind, it feels like it would be strange to hold it. But then on the other side, I'm like, would it really? And then I will say, his sessions from a tin can, because he's in the space station. I imagine the tin would give you really cool sounds. Like the echoing and stuff would be really cool to play in. But I watched him because he's just in a t-shirt and jeans, very simple kind of looking guy. And I've always wondered, I wonder if he had to practice to be able to play in space.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the main constraint would be holding the instrument. What you're saying about the resonance, though, I think you wouldn't be able to hear it because the space station is incredibly noisy with air conditioners and water purifiers and space station-y stuff. So, it's not like
we're obviously astronauts with that scientific term there, Tim. Space station-y stuff.
Well, there's pipes and things.
But there's no, what is it? You can't eat granola because it gets everywhere.
Yeah, all the little bits get in air conditioning ducts and stuff. I think there's certain stuff they're not allowed to eat for that reason.
Yeah, that's why their sandwiches are all on tortillas.
Yeah.
See, we are astronauts, Tim. We do something. It's just funny. You're space station-y stuff like that arrows it down.
I tell you, I would love to go to space. I would love to go up in a Falcon 9 rocket in the Dragon capsule, SpaceX thing. I'd love to do that. However, I routinely ride with one of the guys in the band to gigs because we sometimes share the drive together, especially if it's going to be a couple of hours. And I sit in the passenger seat of his very nice SUV driving down a few windy roads, and I routinely get car sick. So I don't know how well I would be if I went on the space station.
So Charlie gets car sick, my husband does. But I know how you can test your theory, Tim. You need to go to Disney World and do that ride that does the G-forces the same as if you're going into space. There's a ride, and I can't remember what it's called. It's literally you sit inside of it, and they give you 1,000 warnings before you get up there that you because of your health conditions. People have died on it, but it literally makes you feel the same G-forces as if you're leaving the atmosphere.
It's not Space Mountain, is it?
No, it's Space something. Space Mountain's like a roller coaster. This is you strap it and you're in a cockpit kind of situation, and you can see the thing, and you can do the countdown, and then it doesn't actually move. You're watching a screen kind of, but whatever they do in the pressure chamber is kind of where they practice with the astronauts to make sure they can handle it. They do that in the ride. And it's in Disney World, and I'm assuming it still exists. I haven't been there since 2008 or something. But sadly, they have to warn you about if you have heart conditions, if you have this, this ride might be too much for you. A child passed away on it, not the same day. I have really bad luck with this. Kind of like the the weather. When I was in Disney World, a child passed away on the ride. I was in Atlanta when that person's leg got cut off. I could be, doing one of the Space Needle type things. Six Flags. I don't know, maybe I just carry something with me when I go places, but yeah, that one you need to go, Tim, ride it, and then you'll know for sure.
I do think that I think you may be related to the members of Def Leppard. I don't know if I should ever travel with you anywhere.
Well, I told you it's not just me. There's been stories of my family. Like if we go back and tell the stories of different things that have happened on trips with my family, we'll be here for the next 7 years. Like just weird stuff. Hold on, I'm going to Google it. GeForce Disney World ride, because now it's bugging me. Orange Mission uses a something that spins and tilts to stimulate the speed and G-forces of a spacecraft launch and re-entry. Orange Mission offers astronauts 44 inches and taller and more intense experience. It's called Mission Space.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, I've been to Disney. What is it, World or Land? It's Land in Florida, isn't it?
It's World.
World. I've been to Disney World twice. But I tend to stay away from the rides because one, my lower back is a bit dodgy, and secondly, I get motion sickness. So it's like a classic combination for me not to go on a roller coaster or anything like that these days.
So I used to love to go on everything. Now I'm like, I don't know if I want to, because like I don't want to get shaken up. Like that sounds really old, but it's like my joints will hurt, like my back and stuff. And I'm like, ow, I don't know if I want to do that. Charlie swears that he used to be really good at writing stuff, but he gets car sick. Like he can't look on it. Like if he's a passenger, he can't look at his phone or anything because he gets sick reading stuff in the car.
Me too. Exactly the same.
His stomach is very easily upset, like you were saying, windy roads and stuff. And he swears he could all send it back to one time in his life when this all started. He was at some carnival. And I don't think this is scientific. This is just in his mind. You know, those like ones that like flip you upside down over and over and over and over. It's like kind of like a metal tin thing you're in. Mm-hmm. He said he rode that once and got super sick. And ever since then, his stomach has not been the same.
Well, I remember once at Thorpe Park, I was on a teacup ride, which is like these little teacup things that spin around. Yeah. And I got home and threw up everywhere. So I don't think that was the start. So maybe it was the beginning of something, but it wasn't the start of my motion sickness. But I do remember that vividly.
So you have a story too. I will say, there's one roller coaster. I don't remember which roller coaster. It might have been the Rock and Roll Aerosmith one or whatever at Disney. It was inside. And my mom won't go on roller coasters that go upside down. She just refuses. She says they make her sick. Well, this one went upside down, but it was inside, so you couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. So we got up to the front of the line after waiting for hours. And she asked the little guy working, hey, does this go upside down? He's like, yeah, like 3 times. And she's like, what? I just pushed her on the ride because we had waited for 3 hours. I was little. I was like, just go. And I put her down on the ride and they locked her in before she could get off. And so she went through it. And then she had to sit for like an hour afterwards. She still holds that against me. Anyway, moving on. All
right, well, let's move on to another song. Because, I think this is a music podcast. It's hard to say.
Debatable.
Okay, so this comes from probably the greatest band to ever come out of Canada from 2005. This is Nickelback and Rockstar.
He purposely did this. Okay. I'm trying to think of something positive to say about this. Now, I will say this song is defining of my childhood because it was everywhere when I was in high school, and I'm fairly certain. So I don't know. Are yearbooks are yearbooks a European thing, or is that really an American thing?
It's a US thing. We never had that when I went to school. Okay,
so I'm sure you guys all know because it's probably on American TV, but like yearbooks, like they do the little yearbooks every year, and every year you vote on different things like superlatives, like best dress, this person, that person, but you also pick like your senior class's favorite song, your senior class's favorite this, favorite that. I kid you not. So, and I am not proud of this. And let me tell you, I did not vote for either of these things. But in Southwest Virginia and Grayson County, my senior year, we had to vote for our favorite drink and our favorite song. And our favorite song was Nickelback Rockstar. And our favorite drink was Mountain Dew. Seriously. And that's not depressing. I don't know what it is. God. I can't remember what anything else was, but I'm sure it was just as bad. I was not voted for anything, sadly. No, you know what? Actually, I'm not really sad about it because it was all just a popularity contest anyway.
Exactly.
Let's be honest. But really, Tim, Rockstar and Mountain Dew, could they come up with anyway.
Well, I can tell you an interesting fact about Rockstar. Two interesting facts. One, I got obsessed with it about 2 months ago and listened to it on a loop many times. I was super into the video as well when it has all those people lip syncing the lyrics.
Oh, Lord.
So that's one thing. And secondly, there's a little thing in it. You goes, how are you going to do it? And all that kind of. Do you know who that is?
No, I do not.
Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
Huh. I want to know how they got him. How did they get him into this, or did they steal it from something else that it was a pre-record?
No, because he appears in the video as well. I would imagine that they either share a manager or share something like that, if I had to figure it out.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, that's all I have to say about Nickelback.
All right, well, let's move away from Nickelback, because I see that it's some Nickelback PTSD there, and I don't want to labor the point.
My eyes twitching just slightly. It was the other one that I can't stand to hear because it was everywhere, was that Photograph song.
Yeah, look at that photo.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Anyway, okay, what's the next song, Tim?
Okay, so this one comes from 1996. This is actually one of my favorite Canadian bands, which is the Barnaked Ladies. And this is the song, The Old Apartment. I mean, there's so many good songs to choose from them. So I just picked out that one because it was one I really liked.
Well, and it's not one of their, it is a hit, but it's not like one of their overdone hits. I like the video too, because isn't the video like in black and white and they're like sitting in an apartment? I
think so. Yeah.
It's very, it's like a bare bones music video, but I kind of like it because obviously the whole point of the song is broke into the old apartment. So I assume they lived there at some point.
Yeah, that's what he sasays. This is where we used to live. That's in the lyrics.
Yeah, because he talks about like the neighbor downstairs, something about a TV. I'm just going by my remembrance. I don't really know that I knew that Barnaked Ladies was from Canada.
Yeah, famously a Canadian band.
Well, they weren't famously to me. He said that like famously. You should have known. Well, sorry. What was I thinking? And remember, you guys can't see it, but his face was so matter of fact. He almost said that more matter of fact than when I was talking about Jerry Lee Lewis. That was funny. Okay, well. It's a cool song. It's got their vibe. I will say Barnaked Ladies is one of those bands that have like a certain vibe about them that define them very well. And I think this song is a good example of that.
Yeah, I also like If I Had $1 Million is a great song. I mean, there's so many to choose from. Okay,
do you remember the If I Had $1 Million commercial?
No.
Is that an American? I got to Google that. There's a commercial that was on, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was advertising back in the day, but it was everywhere. So it had that song on it.
Wasn't advertising green dresses, but not a real green dress. That's cruel.
Apparently, there was a jingle. If I had $1 million, da-da-da-da-da. It was the New York Lottery? Why was I seeing New York Lottery commercials? Apparently, I was seeing New York Lottery commercials. I wasn't in New York. But yeah, there's like a famous commercial from the late 90s. And it's like this guy going, if I had $1 million. And it was that song. And I guess it was a jingle for the New York Lottery.
Well, there we go. Well, I'm sure that Barnaked Ladies got paid, so that's all that's important.
Well, they must have really got paid considering those commercials were playing in Virginia. Maybe it was, I don't know. Moving along, that makes no sense now. I'm confused. Oh, and I remember because like it wasn't just one guy singing it. This is why that commercial is so iconic. It was like going through multiple people. Like you'd see like a firefighter and then like a construction guy, and they were all just singing then that. And then at the end, it said something about the lottery. That's it.
Okay.
Got it. If I find it, write that down, Tim, and I'll put that one. I'll find the commercial and put it on the Facebook.
Okay. All right. Sounds good to me. All right. Well, let's move on to another song. So this one is bang up to date from 2002. I mean, it's 20 years old, but it's bang up to date for me. And this would be Avril Lavigne another Canadian, and Skater Boy. And just to confirm, Skater Boy is spelled SK8ERBOI. That almost could be a rapper.
It's true. And Avril Lavigne was married to the lead singer of Nickelback for a while.
That's correct, for about 15 minutes.
And so, you know, it all comes full circle, everybody. It all comes full circle. So I grew up in the, because I was 12 in 2002. Skater Boy and Complicated were like defining songs of my generation.
Mm-hmm.
I will say Avril Lavigne came out with 2 or 3 albums later on, like not too long, just a few years back that I liked. So for me, I have like kind of a bridge with Avril Lavigne. So I loved original Avril Lavigne, early 2000s, Skater Boy, Complicated kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Then towards the middle, it kind of got a little too cliche for me. But then the last few years, she's come out with some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think I've heard some later Avril Lavigne, and I think you're right. I think it's good. I do like Complicated. I think that is a really good pop song. It's a well-written, well-performed, well-produced pop song.
So Girlfriend was a really big one that I was a big fan of too. And then I guess I could say Hell because it's not really a bad word. What the Hell was the song that was on a recent album that I really liked a lot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Skater Boy, I mean, I have every lyric in my head. I can see the video. I remember I couldn't make it any more obvious. That's a hit to the lyric. But Avril was one of those people who had a really nice voice, though. Mm-hmm. I feel like it was kind of masked under some poppy, you know, cliche, emo, punk pop kind of thing. But I think her singing voice was actually very nice.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think I've heard her sort of sing with an acoustic guitar or something. And I think you're right. She does have a very good voice. And but I mean, like you say, she's had music out as of late, but I don't know what really happened to her. Is she still deemed popular, or has she become niche at this point?
She's niche at this point, but there is a theory, like with Paul McCartney, that she died and has been replaced.
Okay.
Because she looks younger now than when she was younger.
Or maybe that she was really young and she was sort of wore clothes and makeup to make herself look older, and now she's older, she's not doing that. I don't know.
It's just a theory, Tim, and it seems valid, but there is a theory that she died and has been replaced.
Okay, well, let's...
I don't know. I didn't make it up.
Maybe we'll research that, or maybe not. I don't know.
I haven't looked too far into it, but there were headlines.
Where? In the National Enquirer?
No, on TMZ. Duh.
Oh, TMZ. I mean, basically, that's a thing, isn't it? Isn't that the online wing of the National Enquirer?
Probably. I don't know. Anyway, so yes, that's all I know about modern day Avril Lavigne. She did this really weird, awkward interview with Chelsea Handler once. Mm-hmm. That was so uncomfortable. I think she's one of those people that doesn't, you know how like some musicians just don't interview well. Mm-hmm. She was very awkward. I watched it 2 or 3 times trying to like process what was going on in her mind, but there's like a disconnect I can't explain.
Maybe she was dreaming of the guy from Nickelback. I don't know.
Freddy Krueger or whatever his name is.
Freddie Krueger.
I don't know. Kroger, whatever his name is.
It's Chad.
Oh, it's Chad. We're like a Freddy, like the bad guy from that movie. That's what I think of Nickelback, everybody.
Yeah, this is what we've learned. It's the front person for Nickelback is Freddy Krueger.
Of course his name's Chad. He looks like a Chad from a mile away. Sorry if any of our listeners are Chad. Moving along.
All right. Well, let's move on to this. A lot of people will say this is the greatest Canadian rock band ever. No, for real, not even joking. And this is from 1980. This is Rush, and this is The Spirit of Radio.
Spirit of Radio. So first of all, I love Rush. They're one of my top bands. I don't really, and you know what's funny, Tim? I don't really think we've talked that much about them on this podcast. That's one band that just like hasn't come up.
Yeah, no, I like Rush. I have a Rush box set with nearly all of the albums in it. And one thing about Rush is they can make incredibly complex music sound listenable. And what I mean by that is that you sometimes get jazz musicians, or you get sometimes some metal musicians where the music will go through different movements. It will go through different keys. It will go through different time signatures, and they'll try and do something very complex with it. So like a Slipknot, for example,
Yeah.
To the naked ear, it just sounds like a mush. But if you listen to it, the time signatures it's going through, the keys it's going through, and it's the same kind of thing like a jazz musician would do, where they would be creating these very complex pieces of music. Rush do that. However, they make listenable songs that people can really enjoy. Like Spirit of Radio, I think it has 2 keys or 3 keys in it, and it has about 4 time signatures, including a bit which is reggae.
So
this was a chart hit.
Who usually writes? I mean, I don't know about. I mean, Neil Peart, I would imagine, was probably like a lyricist. But do you know who mostly wrote their music?
I think it's Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson. I think they wrote the music, and Neil Peart wrote the lyrics.
Because see, the thing about it is they're kind of that defining progressive kind of rock sound to me. But I had never thought about it when you said that. But what's interesting if they have that ability, because like the song we're talking about right now. The Spirit of the Radio, that's probably Spirit of the Radio is one of their biggest hits. You know, it's from the Permanent Waves early 80s album. I think it may be their biggest hit. And it does sound very simple. But the reason it probably was a hit, even if it is musically complicated, is mainstream music isn't complicated. If it sounds complicated, it doesn't become mainstream music.
Yeah, that's correct. But said that this doesn't sound complicated, but if you break it down, it is. But
that's what's cool about it, is they were able to do that and make it, palatable for the whole world. And that's not to insult people. That's just the way our brains work, Tim, and what we like to hear. I hate when people are like, "Oh, mainstream music is terrible," da 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 da, whatever, because of the fact that some of it's very simplistic, some of it's the same chords and the same notes. And that's true, but it's also that music's built on a pattern. A 4x4 is a 4x4 for a reason. 4 notes, 4 time signatures, that's just a pattern. That's how the music works. And that's the most common time signature out there. So for them to be able to take something like that and make it more palatable is probably how they became. I mean, that's talent to me. I'm just saying.
There we are. Well, I'm pleased that Rush gets Joy's seal of approval.
I will say, I find it very interesting. They've never come up on the podcast before. Like, I don't remember ever talking about them.
No, maybe at some point we should do a Rush episode. I don't know.
I'm sure now that I said that, I've opened the floodgates and it'll pop up for the next 7 years.
Exactly. Well, okay. Well, let's move on to another one. So this is from 2004. We may have covered it before. I can't remember. Again, it's a cover. This is by William Shatner. And this is his cover of Pulp's Common People. Now, are you familiar with William Shatner's cover of Pulp's Common People?
I am. Only because I feel like you've talked about it, but I could be wrong. Oh, William Shatner. I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, the William Shatner style is very similar to my vocal style, which is where you sort of speak it rather than sing it. And he's done lots of songs in the past. Like, famously, he did Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds off his first sort of album of that kind of stuff. And he's covered lots of songs over the years. And in fact, I have another album of his which has more contemporary songs on it, and he's doing his dramatic readings. But I will say, having heard a lot of William Shatner's music, his cover of Common People sort of transcends the novelty. I really think this is a good song. And in my opinion, I think it is much better than the original.
I would have to think about that because I would have to go back and listen. It's been a long time. He does do like a lot of speaking kind of folksy sound, and then sing along with the common people, that kind of thing. I remember hearing him say those words. And the original, I think, had, was Jarvis Cocker, right? That was the original. Yeah. That's his name. He kind of had a folksy sound too, so it makes sense that this would work. But I have to go back and re-listen to it to be sure. But I will say William Shatner should do spoken word books.
And he probably has, to be honest with you. Or as I like to call him, astronaut William Shatner.
He has a nice sound to his voice. And he's rhythmically, I think he can, you know what I mean? I feel like he's very divisive because it's so very odd. Like, you know what I mean? He sounds like William Shatner. He doesn't sound like anything else.
No. But I mean, like in this song, his dramatic reading really builds this song to a crescendo. And it's not just him, it's Ben Folds. Ben Folds plays the instruments on it, and he also sings a bit on it. But when we listen, She came from Greece. She had a thirst for knowledge. She went to St. Martin's College, and I said, I. She told me her dad was loaded. I said, I'll have some rum and Coca-Cola. And I said, fine. Are you sure? I want to live like common people. It's brilliant.
Well, and the thing about it is, I think Jarvis Cocker has said before that this was like a real story. Like, it's his story. And so William Shatner is just taking it and telling you the story in a different manner. And I really love Ben Folds, just so you know.
Yeah.
But my husband has broke me of that one Bill Folds 5 song that got played everywhere. I can't even think the name of it anymore.
Is it the one that goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do?
Whatever the most famous song he's ever done is. Charlie loved that song and played it nonstop for like 6 months. So, anyway. I mean, he likes what he likes. What can we say?
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Tim went 5 months apparently listening to Rockstar by Nickelback.
But how are you going to do it?
Never going to let you live that one down. All right. What's the next one?
Okay. So this is from 1983. This is the only song I know of by this band.
Okay.
And this is Men Without Hats. And this is the Safety Dance.
That is another one of my husband's favorite songs, and he loves that video.
Yeah, I when I was preparing for this episode, I watched the video to Safety Dance, and it is absolutely fantastic.
So, because they're like in a medieval kind of thing, and they're like, they're dancing. It's a bunch of medieval clothes, and they're dancing, but. And I mean, literally the song's like, we can dance if we want to, we could leave this world behind, that whole thing. And it's just people in medieval clothing dancing.
But what is a safety dance? Is it a dance that you do to be safe? Is it a dance that you do when you are safe?
I don't know, because he says we can dance. Everybody's taking the chance. So that makes it sound iffy to me because they're taking a chance. That doesn't sound very safe.
Yeah, I don't know. Is OSHA involved in this?
As an HR representative, I would say no.
Or for our UK listeners, the health and safety executive.
Hold on. Okay, let's see.
This is news. Breaking news. Over to you, Joy. Breaking news.
The safety dance is a protest against bouncers prohibiting dancers from pongoing and then Pogoing. Pogoing, where people from pogoing to 1980s new wave music and clubs when disco was declining and new wave. What's pogoing? Is that a dance?
It's like when you go to a punk concert and people just jump up and down. That's pogoing.
Oh, like you're on a pogo stick.
Yeah.
Oh, so apparently it's a protest against bouncers prohibiting that.
Okay, so they do a safety dance instead.
I guess. It just says writer, lead singer Ivan, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, has explained that's what the safety dance is.
Okay, well, there we are. I'm glad that news has broken through from 1983. And we now know what a safety dance is.
I Googled it while Tim was talking. I gave it a Google because I was curious. But yeah, I guess. But, it's funny, though, is that when you're watching the medieval video, there's a lot of jumping. Like they're kind of like jumping around. Maybe I love how I overthought what pogoing was. And I was like, oh, like a pogo stick. I've never heard it used in that way. News to me, everybody. I would have just said jumping.
Yeah, you see that. You see like footage of a Sex Pistols concert. And everyone's just like manically jumping up and down. It's pogoing.
Well, apparently bouncers did not like it. I kind of get the bouncers' point. It'd be really hard if something happened to someone for you to get in, and probably a good way for people to get injured.
I would imagine so. But, in the cut and thrust of a 70s punk gig, I think getting injured, you probably wear that as a badge of honor. I don't know.
Or maybe the bouncers just really love disco.
It could be. I do know that if there is a punk music revival, I'm not allowing you to go to any concerts, Joy.
So I wanted to go to a Flogging Molly concert so bad. I still do to this day. But I am so scared that if I go to one, someone's going to punch me in the face or something. Yeah,
well, I've told you about the time I saw the Levelers in Brighton, and I was somewhere near the front, and the people I was with were super into the Levelers, and it got very rowdy with pogoing, in fact. And a few people started jumping around and people started crowd surfing. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to wait at the back, enjoy your concert.
Yeah, that's what would happen. I would love to go to a Flogging Molly concert or even a Dropkick Murphys concert would be fantastic, but I'd be scared I'd end up injured.
Yeah, Joy, that is not for you. So as somebody who slips over in the kitchen and then lacerates your foot and stuff, that environment is not for you.
Well, and I would move to the back, and then someone's shoe would fly off and still hit me in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
My glasses would break and end up in my eye. All right. So that's the moral of the story is Joy. And that's why I didn't know what pogoing is. It's been banned. I'm not allowed to do it. What's the next song?
Okay, so let's go with this one. Are you familiar with the band Chromeo?
No.
Oh, well, I'll just mention it because maybe you should look it up. Chromeo from 2010. It's a song called Night by Night. Now, they are sort of a dance pop type act, and they use like a vocoder effect on the vocals on some of it, and they're really good. But if you've never heard Chromeo, it's hard to have a discussion about them. But I just like to put that out there because it's a song that I really like, and they have a NPR Tiny Desk concert that you should check out.
I will give it a Goog as soon as this is over and look on the YouTubes.
There we go. All right, so let's move on to this one. You'll definitely know this one.
Okay.
1993, The Crash Test Dummies, and
So I was watching this movie, and I don't know if it's true or not. It was The Spy Who Dumped Me, and they were talking about it relates to the Crash Test Dummy.
Okay,
they were saying that like it was voted the world's worst song or something.
I mean, how could you say that? I mean, like people say the same thing about Starships We Built This City, but both of those songs, and especially Crash Test Dummies, they were big hits at the time. People loved them.
The Crash Test Dummies, I think because it was right when I was growing up, was everywhere. I can't think of a song that I've heard maybe. The only other song I can think I've heard maybe more than that is the Thud Thumping song, Chumbawamba.
Yeah.
I mean, I still wonder, though, to this day, if I actually understand what the song is about. Because, like, I think crash test dummies, you think they're talking about, like, car crashes. But then, like, you listen to the lyrics, and it just, I don't know if I know what it's about. Because, there's a girl, her hair turned gray, she got into an accident. I don't know if I understand the references.
I have not really looked deep into the lyrics of this song, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, this says there was a girl who wouldn't go to the girls' change room. And when she finally went there, she had birthmarks all over her body. She couldn't explain. Then there's another kid who got into a car accident and his hair turned from black until bright white. And they couldn't quite explain it. And there's another section about parents made him come home after school. I'm doing this all from memory. And then when he went to church, he shook all over the church. Like, it's a very weird song if you look at the lyrics dynamically. Maybe I'm taking it too literal.
Maybe it's not some metaphors or something. I said I've never really looked into the lyrics of this song.
Well, I have because it's just one of those things. And because, it was early 90s. I was a kid then. It was just a song that I heard all the time. But yeah, the one that always stands on my head is he said that he got into a car accident and his hair turned from black to white and they couldn't explain why. But then I wondered if it was because they're crash test dummies. So they're in a lot of car accidents. I don't know.
I think that's just the name of the band. I don't think it's a way of life for them.
Are we sure? Are they actually real people or are they crash test dummies? Now, I would define them as one-hit wonders for sure. I don't know any other song from the Crash Test Dummies.
I think they did a cover of Istanbul, Not Constantinople, I think.
That sounds like something they would do.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, they had that one album called God Shuffled His Feet, and I think they probably have had other hits since then. But yeah, I think in the realm for most people, they are a one-hit wonder.
Fair. I mean, I don't know, that little it's very iconic in my brain. So even if they were one-hit wonders, they left something in my brain, and now I can forever debate what the song's actually about.
Exactly. They wrote a song that could be debated through the ages.
And if any of the members of the Crash Test Dummies are listening and would like to come on, let us know.
Maybe they're living in Hounslow now. I don't know.
Who knows? That's not on the next bingo card. I don't know what will be. If you listen to this episode, we'd love to have you. Oh no, when that became my catchphrase. All right. How much time we got, Tim?
We can probably do 3 more. There we go.
Okay, three more.
Okay. So this one is from 1989, and this is a jam night karaoke classic. This is Alana Miles, and this is Black Velvet.
And it is one of my go-to karaoke songs.
See, there we are.
And I learned it on the ukulele just for that reason. I mean, I think the reason it works so well, though, is because, well, she literally has a voice that's like velvet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those songs that's usually within the average female's range. That's like a mezzo soprano, which is like can do a little bit on both sides. So I get why it would be. And it's also just a classic. I mean, who doesn't want to sing Black Velvet? It just sounds cool when you're singing it.
Exactly. I've performed this many times at open mic nights and jam nights and stuff like that. And Tony, who is Tony Husbands, wife of Ian Husbands, I've performed it with her many times, and she does an absolutely fabulous version of this song.
She has a very rich sounding speaking voice, so that doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Tony,
she has a very rich, powerful singing voice as well.
Well, there you go, Tony. You listen. We're giving you all the compliments. That doesn't surprise me, though. I can see her doing this very well. I mean, there's nothing more to say. I do love the part where she's like, "Love me tender," leaves him crying in the aisles. Which the weird thing about "Love Me Tender," like the song from Elvis, it's based on a nursery rhyme. And so that song goes back for it's such an iconic status. It's one of the first songs that I learned on the piano, but I learned the nursery rhyme. It was only once I got older that I figured out that it was the Love Me Tender song. And now on my Animal Crossing island, every hour you can put in notes and write a song. That's what it plays. Because in in that verse where she's like, "Love me tender," leaves him crying in the aisles, the way he moved. She's talking about this guy who's a sweet and simple, "Love me tender," Elvis. I just thought that's a pretty cool line, the way she puts it in there.
Yeah, it's a good song. All around, it's a good song.
And I don't know a whole lot about her music, but she has a wonderful voice.
She does. I have a few albums of hers. I have the album this one is from, which is just called Alana Miles. And I bought on CD recently one that's called Alana Miles, which is like a follow-up to this or released after this. And I was listening to it yesterday. It actually has some really good songs on it. I think... Again, she's probably seen as a one-hit wonder artist, but she has a lot more good music out there that no one has really discovered, it seems.
Maybe we'll do an album of the week on her or something to get it out there to the masses.
There we are. We'd be happy to promote Alana Miles and her fabulous music from Canada.
Is the song actually about Elvis?
I don't know.
Or is it just a reference to it?
Probably just a reference. I've never really given the lyrics a lot of thought.
I feel like this is a common thing. Tim has given the music so much thought, down to he knows what guitar the person is playing. And I'm over here going, yeah, but what do you think the lyrics mean? And Tim's like, I don't know. I didn't listen.
Yeah, I mean, that's me, actually. I love music and I absorb a lot of music and I listen to a lot of music. And the actual music part is the part I focus on typically. Sometimes a lyric will catch my attention or the theme of a song will catch my attention. But there are some people who listen to music and the lyrics is what drives them. The lyrics is what sucks them into it. But I'm more of a music guy than a lyric person.
I think that's just the type of musicians we are, though, because I'm much more of a vocalist. I have been since like a small child, whereas Tim is, obviously a guitarist. So maybe it's probably what drives our ear.
Exactly.
And I like to sing the songs, and in order to sing the songs, I have to learn the lyrics. There you go, everybody. What a astounding thing for me to admit to everyone. Unless you're Charlie, and then you just sing whatever you think the lyrics are. Entire song.
And there's some value in that. And I mean, that's where Weird Al got his break.
Do not tell my husband that, Tim, because he basically thinks he's the next Weird Al. What is it? This is my remake. I'm doing a freestyle, Joy. All right, what's the next song?
Well, I couldn't talk about Canadian music without talking about Alanis Morissette.
Of course.
And this is from 1995 from her amazing album, Jagged Little Pill. I mean, there's so many good songs to pick off of here, but I decided to go with the opening track, which is All I Really Want. Now, I don't even think this was a single, but that every track on this album is strong, and it opens with this, and it is amazing.
So this is one of my all-time favorite albums. I'm a huge Alanis Morissette fan. Like Tim says, when you want Alanis Morissette, you want her in a bad mood and upset with someone.
Exactly.
That's what you want your Alanis.
Yeah, you want angry Alanis, you want some dude has done her wrong, and that's what you want, and her music is the best then.
But I would love this as the opening track too, because the first line, here we go, the lyrics again is, "Do I stress you out?" ?
Yeah.
That is like so iconic to that stress, like that, what we were just saying, that kind of melancholy Alanis that you want, the angry, do I stress you out? My sweater is on backwards and inside out. Like, I don't know any other album that has such an iconic opening that builds into what the rest of the album is going to be.
Yeah, even just like as I said, I'm an instrumentation person. Like the way it opens with like the guitar and the harmonica and the way the drums come in, it's just perfect. Like her anger, it hits you immediately.
And I don't know if we looked it up, the amount of hits that came off that album has to be like a record.
I would imagine so. I mean, I don't know which ones were. You got Hand in My Pocket and what's that? I want you.
You ought to know.
That's it. Yeah, I couldn't think of the title.
I wanted to wait for him to do that for you guys to hear his Atlantis impression.
I want you to know.
I mean, I could be wrong, and maybe it's just because I've listened to that album so many times, but I felt like a lot of those songs became hits. That's just maybe possibly because I've heard it so many times.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, I don't think this song was released as a single, but it's so strong.
Yeah, it is. And she does kind of have, I don't know if vocal fry is the way to say it. It kind of has a vocal fry sound to her voice, but hers doesn't sound strained. It sounds natural, and that makes the difference. And that's what makes her voice so perfect. But I mean, I think it's funny now that she makes fun of ironic, because none of it's ironic. You know, the whole thing about the literal meaning of ironic is the opposite of what she said in the song. I like that she can poke fun of herself.
Yeah, wasn't there like some kind of video that she made that was a parody of the original video?
She did it, I think, for like a late night host or something, maybe. But she did a whole music video of it. It's really funny, actually, if you go back and watch it. But I will say my favorite part of Ironic is when she's like, talk about the guy, and he's like, well, isn't this where she's talking about, he's been scared to fly, he finally flies, and as the plane crashes down, he thinks, well, isn't this nice? So I'd be like, of course, isn't this nice?
Well, because it's ironic or not really.
Not really. There's no irony in that. But it's just funny the way he goes, well, isn't this nice? Because have you ever had one of those moments? Everybody's had this moment. Like, let's say, Tim, you're lost and you keep getting more lost and you're getting frustrated and you're in a bad mood because you're lost. And it's just one more thing. And you realize you turn down a road and it's a one way. And you're like, of course it is. Why wouldn't I have expected that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what that moment reminds me of. It's like, well, isn't this nice? Or another example is, I don't feel like you've ever watched the movie The Emperor's New Groove, but they're like going through all these like shenanigans and they end up they're tied together and they're falling down a waterfall, and he goes, sharp pointy rocks at the bottom. Of course.
I mean, why wouldn't there be?
Why wouldn't there be? That's what that line reminds me of.
Marvelous. All right, well, let's close this episode with one last Canadian song.
All right.
Now, I probably expect you do not know this artist, but you will certainly know the song. So this is from 1976, and the band is Klaatu, Klaatu. They were a pop, kind of progressive pop group, I suppose. And there was rumors at the time that it was, in fact, the Beatles that had reformed and was going under a pseudonym of Klaatu. That was sort of the buzz in the music press when they were not so much performing, but releasing albums in the 70s. It has a very kind of Beatle-y type feel about it. But the interesting thing on their album that's 347 EST is the original version of Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft. It is their song. It is not a Carpenter's song. It was written and recorded by them first.
Oh, I've never heard of that though. That's interesting.
And it's very similar to the Carpenters version. The Carpenters version adds a little bit more pomp, and then it's got all like the strings, and it kind of sort of crashes out into a big crescendo type thing. But then the Klaatu version's a little bit more stripped back, but it's essentially the same thing. But if you look in the liner notes of that Carpenter's Gold album, where Richard Carpenter talks about each song and why they recorded them, all that kind of stuff, they said that, I think it was Karen Carpenter said she heard that song by Klaatu and thought, oh, this is fantastic. We should cover this.
And that's kind of one of their iconic songs too. That's cool.
And it's not originally their song. It's Klaatu's song.
That's one of those ones. Usually, you hear the cliche ones like this is not, other songs. Everybody's like, did you know that's not the original? There you go, Tim. You just taught me one that I actually had never heard before.
There we are. But yeah, check that out. Klaatu's Calling, Occupants of Interplanetary Craft. But I mean, of course, the Carpenters version is fantastic. But just from a curiosity's perspective, I tell you, words are hard sometimes.
Curiosity. I was going to say curiosity, and then I realized it's killed the cat. I was going to say, like, stole your tongue, and then I was just stopped to say.
No, Curiosity Killed the Cat was an 80s pop group that did a song called Down to Earth.
But, you've heard this saying, Curiosity Killed the Cat. You're saying, if you were curious, and I was going to be like, Curiosity stole your tongue, and then I was like, no, Joy, that's not it. I don't know why that's what my brain thought. And with that, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To find me out another day to